Okay. Did everyone click on that? Great. Welcome. My name is Donna Daniell, and I am really happy to see so many faces tonight to talk about this deep subject of grief. I first want to start with a quote from one of my favorite teachers, Zendu Earthlyn Manuel, who has written The Shamanic Bones of Zen. And I've recently been really getting more into the ancestors of where we learn how to be in the darkness. And I want to read her quote. Grief can last forever. It's a persistent tenderizer of your heart. Allow it to be itself, to sit with you and to speak through silence. Let it use you to touch into the heart of all living beings and to forever speak of love. This is opening to darkness. We meet grief at the crossroads of darkness and suffering. We meet our anger and our rage. Our crying is the expression of it all coming forth. The darkness is asking something of us. It is an opportunity to shake us loose from a perception or belief of ourselves and of others. It is a process of shaping deeper love inside our hearts. So just take a deep breath and find your sit bones in your seat and just notice your breath for a moment. When we get into our breath, we can begin to really feel how to work with the grief journey. And so I'm going to continue with some breath throughout the talk tonight, and I hope that will be helpful to you. So this grief journey is all about learning how to hang out in the darkness as the Zen Buddhist tradition calls it, or maybe the dark night of the soul as the Christian tradition calls it. And in my terminology from my work and my terminology, I call it deep diving. I speak about it in stage 3 of my midlife voyage to transformation, which I wrote about in my memoir. And I'll tell you more about my grief journey as we go through this together. But I want to help you stay in touch with your own feelings in your own journey as we go through this as well. So grief is an opportunity to tap into our fierce courage, our determination, our strength, and our gentle compassion for ourselves. So just to check in with each of you for a moment, how many of you are actively experiencing what you would call grief in your life right now? Just raise your hand. Okay. Thank you. And how many of you have had an experience of grief in your life, but it's not as present right now? Okay. So how many of you have some form of a mindfulness practice? Great. Okay, so those are the main things I needed to know to be able to take you a little bit into some of the tools as we've processed through our grief journeys together. And we're not going to process them as much as just keep it on the surface as we breathe. Okay, so I'm going to tonight give you ways that you can use your mindfulness practice to work with your grief and how to stay with your grief through what is called deep listening, or working with your body, your breath, and allowing more embodiment in more of the grief to be embodied in your body. As I give you a little bit of a breath practice for the next few moments, just allow yourself to feel how this feels to you. And if at any moment you feel like you need to close and not continue, that is completely fine. I want you to compassionately listen to what you need in this moment. And it's not anything very deep, but I just wanted to give you that awareness that you can do what is right for you in this moment. So I just like to invite you to close your eyes and just find your breath. Allow yourself to drop into the rhythm of your breath, the rise and fall, and just notice how the inhale fills up your body and how it flows over into a release in the exhale. Inhale, feeling the breath. Exhale, releasing and letting it all go. Just allowing your breath to flow through your body as you notice it. And now feeling the inner sense of the breath inside of you. As you hold and release each breath, notice that the breath is always there for you. Always there for you, holding you. Just feel the inner sense of this breath inside of you, supporting you and bringing the presence of life's energy through you in a constant flow. Being the breath, feeling the breath flowing through you, holding you. Now just allow yourself to just be as still as you can be in this feeling of the breath, being in the breath. Just notice anything else that might be there. Whatever is there, making room for it with your breath and your awareness. Maybe a little more curious towards what that it might be. Noticing it. And staying here for just a few more seconds. And then just coming back to your breathing as you slowly open your eyes. And I hope in that few moments of just breathing with yourself that you noticed maybe a tiny glimpse of something that may be a little uncomfortable. We all have something. And if you didn't, that's completely fine also. We don't want to try to make something happen. However, it will show up if you're open to it. So just allowing yourself to notice whatever it is that's here right now. So as we continue this process together of talking about the grief journey and the hero's journey, just allow yourself to notice each time we stop and breathe, and I'm going to do several pauses, what is called a pause practice. so that you can have a few minutes to just stay with yourself and stay with your breath and notice what might be coming up, might be flowing around inside of you. Not that you need to do anything with it, just notice it. Allow it to be there. That's our most important process, is noticing something and allowing it to be there, not pushing it away. So now, let's just talk for a minute together. Why would I offer the concept of a hero's journey to talk about the grief journey? I guess for me, the question for me is, how do we learn how to stay on a grief journey and not lose our way? How do we find our healing journey home? And what is that? What is that path? I think collective stories about our human experience can help us, because it helps us trust to be in our own lives, in our own process, instead of being afraid of it. So I hope the stories, the hero's journey and the myths that I share with you and some of my own story will help you begin to start trusting how to be in your own journey a little more deeply, and to meet it with curiosity and fierce courage. Grief is painful and ugly and shameful in our culture. It shows up when we don't want it, and it doesn't go away easily. It lurks underneath, waiting to pop up and scare us. It's ferocious and it's painful. And of course, we want to push it away because it's so big and scary. And our culture does not want us to feel our pain or feel anything. Push it away, get it over, get through it. Are you done yet? Our culture wants us to get over it fast. And that is very painful. So we have to use fierce courage to find our path and to allow ourselves to be on it. How do we find the path? Many experiences in life give us opportunities, right? All of you are in the middle of many things in your life and many opportunities. For me, it was my midlife, where I had 6 major transitions that hit me, and I had to figure out how to keep my life going. I had a child to raise, a practice to have, a marriage, a family, a life that needed to be lived. And so that the process for me was finding an inner journey. And I began to start looking at ways to understand my journey as I got through it, so that I could help other people find what I found. But through those 6 major transitions, I really think I found my grief journey at some point. And I'll just briefly share a piece of it, and then I want to go into the hero's journey. My sister was killed when I was 32, my special favorite younger sister. And that knocked me into a shutdown, a freeze of completely cutting myself off from my emotions and not really having any sense of what was going on with me for a good year and a half. And what really brought me back was realizing I was going so fast that I couldn't kind of keep up with myself. So I was running away from whatever I was trying to feel and pushing it down as fast as I could. And I had been married for 3 years at that point. And after that, I ended up having a child, and I ended up having a serious postpartum depression when I had my child. my marriage was not very stable at that point. And so part of what happened for me is that I again pushed down everything to survive and to get through that. But I began to start noticing that I was pushing everything down. And I was in training to be a psychotherapist, and I was learning about a lot of these tools, such as mindfulness and depression and all the ways that we kind of avoid feeling our feelings. And I was noticing how I was doing that in spades. And I noticed that that was how my family handled feelings. So I was doing what I only knew, was to push them away. And then my husband wanted to divorce me when my son was 10 years old. And that was a huge shock to my system. And that divorce was probably what woke me up more than anything. Was I had to figure out how to get through my anger. And that took a lot of work and a lot of tools. And I wrote about that in my book a lot. I used what I call moorings, tools that help you kind of find balance and find ways to get in touch with yourself in deeper ways. Many of those tools you all use every day, I'm sure, but they're tools that help you kind of get grounded again. So that first stage when you get lost in an event, like for me, my postpartum depression or the divorce, were totally about getting lost at sea and then finding slowly moorings to pull you back. So in this process of coming out of my divorce and raising my son, I grew a lot and learned a lot. And I want to share a little bit about my grief journey later, but I want to talk about Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, because this spoke to me then, and it speaks to me now as a way of looking at how do we navigate our lives and work through these challenges. So all of you have probably heard of this great myth maker and scholar, Joseph Campbell. His book, Hero with a Thousand Faces, was published in 1949. And in this process, he came up with a monomyth that he studied many different myths from many different countries, including the Native Americans, and realized that there was sort of a monomyth that most of our stories follow. It's really all about a heroic quest for wholeness that requires deep searching, questing, and fighting for a life of your soul that brings about personal transformation and rebirth. So the hero, according to Campbell, ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are encountered, a decisive victory is won, and the hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow men. So this hero's journey really has 17 stages, but for the purpose of simplification here, I want to just divide it into 3 simple major parts. And you can apply it to the Star Wars story because we all know Star Wars. So the first stage is the departure. Luke Skywalker leaves his home planet of Tatooine with the hope of helping the rebels defeat the Galactic Empire. Stage 2 is the initiation. The trials on the journey that he has, like training with Obi-Wan Kenobi and rescuing Princess Leia from the Death Star, and then finally using the Force to destroy the Death Star. And then the third stage is the return. Returning home to the rebel base where he receives a medal and is named a hero. So this is the hero's journey according to Joseph Campbell. So as I struggled to apply this myth to myself, to my journey, and to the world today as a woman, I also searched for other stories and myths with female protagonists on heroic journeys because I wanted to see how they coincided with my own experience of my grief journey. And I found answers in the work of Maureen Murdoch. She was a student of Joseph Campbell, and she wrote The Heroine's Journey, A Woman's Quest for Wholeness in 1998. She wrote, "The feminine journey is about going down into the soul, healing and reclaiming, while the masculine journey is up and out to spirit." And to me, it seems like in both cases, whether it's the hero or the heroine's journey, it is about personal growth, individuation, and spiritual development. So let me share a little bit about the three Maureen Murdoch's heroine's journeys, the stages. So again, I'm going to simplify. She had 10 major stages. The three major phases that I would separate those 10 into are these. Stage 1, the initial separation from the feminine. So for women, according to Maureen Murdoch, in order to live in the masculine world defined by our culture, the woman develops masculine skills and allies to carve her niche and succeed in this competitive environment. She fights to succeed, and she also has to overcome the myths of female inferiority, dependency, and romantic love. She strives for the illusions of the boons of success, money, political power, relationships, corporate position. The second stage is called the descent. She discovers she has lost a deep relationship to herself through this process of stage 1 separation. So she goes through an initiation, which is a descent to the goddess of the underworld, where she reclaims the depths of her lost feminine soul. Stage 3, the ascent. She comes out of the darkness of this womb-like period of isolation and silence, where she has learned to listen to her soul. She becomes a spiritual warrior and begins to balance and integrate her life again with both masculine and feminine. She takes great patience and focus on this journey because it's the journey, not the outcome, that she needs. And her quest is a larger one, to use her skills to bring consciousness to others, to preserve the balance of life on Earth. I just want to take a moment to pause here and just breathe. Taking in what might be going on inside of you, noticing your breath. Just being with it for a moment. This is a lot. Myths are pretty intense. Stories are intense, right? We can easily get lost in story. So coming back to your breath and just noticing what might be churning, what might have gotten touched by some of those concepts, thoughts, images. Feel free to make any notes or do whatever you need to help yourself through this process of just noticing what's here. So the other piece of Murdoch's work that I want to share with you, because she was really building on Campbell's work and taking it to a modern level, I believe. And we can continue to do that, each one of us, in our own myth making of who we are as we are living our lives. But Murdoch highlights this powerful ancient myth of Inanna, who was the Sumerian goddess of heaven and earth from the 3rd millennium BC. This is in the goddess culture, back before it was pushed out. And in this ancient mythological story, Inanna consciously decides to go down into the depths of the underworld to witness the funeral rites of her sister's husband. Her sister is the queen of the underworld. So Inanna is choosing to make this journey, which is very dangerous, and to shed her identification and power in the world with the masculine, to go down and contend with her sister. And on this grief, and she is going down to die to find an older way of being. She doesn't know it yet. And to wait for rebirth. And during the process of going down, she's having to contend with her sister, the dark goddess, or the death goddess, blocking her way. So even though she wants to have this journey, her sister is holding her back. Ultimately, she is able to descend. She submits to the death goddess, and her sister puts her on a peg to rot. In this hanging, Inanna sits in not knowing, like a chrysalis, waiting to transform with new clarity and wisdom. This is deep listening or not doing. And in this place, she learns the nature of her loss or its meaning. So in this story, many of you have probably heard of this myth. I love it. I love it because it closely describes what happens when we hit a major event at midlife and find ourselves again, or we find ourselves lost. We are either facing the death of a loved one, or feeling death inside of us from a divorce, or we're experiencing some life-threatening illness. And in this tale, there's many parts of the deep dive that we need to do to go down into the depths of our psyche, whether it's with trauma healing work, whether it's Buddhist Zen practice, whether it's deep nature practice. But in the process of going down, we find how to unblock the parts of our true self that need to come forth. So there's so much in this myth, but I want to just take a moment and share with you another piece of this myth that I feel is really powerful about this journey. There's another character in this myth, and she shows women how to deal with our sense of loss of power in the masculine world and how to reclaim it. This is Ereshkigal, She is the queen of the underworld. Ereshkigal represents the part of the woman that has gone underground by splitting off her initial separation from her divine feminine. And she represents those qualities that we repress as we try to fit into the dominant culture. And this is men and women. Our bodily wisdom, our emotional intelligence, our passion. Ereshkigal represents these qualities that we repress as we try to fit into this culture. And in the myth, she shows rage, active destructiveness, and then suffering, while finally being able to show gratitude by listening empathically. So when we meet this aspect of ourselves as Ereshkigal represents, we face our own rage, our own denial, sadness, fear, and our fear of loss and grief. Ereshkigal demands that we look at those parts of ourselves that we don't wish to see, our shadow parts. And these provide protection for us, but they also block us. Maybe it's our passivity, our greediness, our ego, our pride, our people pleasing, or any part of us that blocks our true seeing of our true authentic selves. I think this goddess is really similar to Kali. Kali, the goddess of revolution in the Hindu pantheon. Those of you that study some of the yoga pantheon, Kali is very powerful. But these goddesses represent the place of death and new life lying dormant together. And when this intersection of death and life come together, we find creation and a new healing. This is where we meet ourselves with all of our parts, whether it's in trauma work, whether it's in deep practice, where we meet it all. And we must learn how to hold ourselves at the same time, like Inanna did, fierce or discerning compassion and grace.
Hey.
So just taking a moment again for pause.
Swami?
And those of you on the call, if you can just check and mute your call, that would be really great. So we're getting some background noises. Thank you. Just paying attention now for a few moments to you and your breath, what you're noticing about your own grief journey, what might be popping up or flowing through you. Just allowing yourself to notice it, allowing it to be there. You're giving yourself this time to listen, to be with yourself. And this is what it takes. So I wanted to just share a little bit more about how the grief journey is a hero's journey. I hope by this time you're beginning to start seeing how it all comes together. And to think about what is heroic about a grief journey. How do we begin to get from our deep suffering and our own personal pain to a place of seeing that this is universal, that this is what every single human being goes through, and that it's absolutely an opportunity for healing, for growing ourselves, and for expanding our spiritual capacity. Looking at your own life. What has been heroic in your life, and what do you define as heroic? So I thought I would just take the last few minutes here to talk a little bit about the tools. What are the tools for this descent, this deep diving? For me, it was deciding that I was in a very destructive relationship and that I couldn't live in that way any longer. The person that I had become. And so choosing to leave my second husband was my grief journey. My decision to acknowledge that I needed to leave and find an adventure or a journey or a way to find expansion and a new perspective. Myths and journeys that take us beyond what we're comfortable with, outside of our comfort zones, whether it's a big adventure, whether it's just a pilgrimage, whether it's just being on our own in whatever way that needs to be. Choosing to do it, choosing to say, this is what I need, is sometimes the hardest thing to do. And it also grows us. So this is what we call fierce compassion. So the tools for the descent are fierce compassion. Paying attention enough to see what is the most compassionate thing we can do for ourselves, and taking action. And then exploring more who we are. What are our feminine traits? What are our masculine traits? And how do they show up? Bringing back the feminine into our lives would be paramount for our healing. And I'll show you and talk to you more about what I mean by that. But what parts of you are feminine? What parts of you are masculine? And how do you operate? And what are the parts of you that are heroic? And has heroism changed for you in your life about how you see yourself? And the parts of you and how they are? Or have they grown and changed in how they are? So getting in touch with more of who you are inside, not being afraid to get to know yourself in a really deep way. And then slowing down, finding a pace that allows rest and recovery. We can't do any of this work if we speed up. And finding silence and stillness. Learning to be in our silence and stillness with ourselves. That takes gentle compassion. That takes kindness. That takes allowing ourselves to be however we are. That takes being kind and gentle. So we have fierce compassion and we have gentle compassion. And then we have what's called self-attunement, which is learning how to listen and be your own best friend. We all know how to listen and be friends to others, but sometimes we don't know how to do that for ourselves as well. And so truly listening and being with yourself enough so that you can actually get to know these major players inside of you, and then learn how to mother them or care for them. Witness their pain. Hear them, and then protect and love them after you understand their stories. This is deep work to go down and listen to your deeper parts and to understand more of who you really are, and especially the painful ones. So grief work is really about learning how to listen to the ones who are screaming the loudest, and learning how to create what I call a self-compassion container with that fierce compassion and that gentle compassion to hold yourself in that breath and that compassion, and learn how to be with yourself as you listen to the ones that are screaming. And part of this process involves deepening your embodiment, learning how to be with yourself and your body. You can't do this work in your head. It's about deep embodiment work. So that involves whatever you do to get in your body. Yoga, dance, movement, heart-opening activities, singing, playing, being in nature, loving, holding, awakening your heart, mind, and spirit. Embodiment is being as fully human as you can be, and letting your body, trusting your body to be fully embraced. That's how healing happens, through our bodies. We have to be in our bodies. And oftentimes when we're in grief, we shut off our hearts and we harden our bodies. And there's so many new ways and so many ideas and ways to begin to work with that. And then connection with others, finding community, learning how to compassionately listen to each other and witness each other. When we can do this, we can shift our way of being in the world and with each other, and have compassion, deeper compassion. So I've already said this tool, but you all know it and you're already using it. It's deep listening practices, mindfulness practices, nature practices, being with your breath. And then I've said this before too, music, chanting, singing, dancing. Music is a wonderful way to open your body and your heart. So I think all I wanted to say is to just stop for a moment again and pause. Check into your breathing again. Note if anything feels different since you started tonight. And you may want to make an intention to continue these pauses a little bit more into your day tomorrow or the next day. And to maybe deepen what you've noticed tonight. Spend a little more time on the cushion with it. Allowing more connection with yourself. And be gentle and kind in this practice. So I wanted to say that I'm so grateful for all of you for just choosing to spend some time here tonight with me. And I am offering some retreats and workshops around grief that I've put into the chat. I have a women's retreat at the Eco Dharma Center this October. That'll be my last women's retreat up at this center. And it's October 25th through the 29th. We'll be using a lot of these tools, and I would love to talk with you more about that. I have a meet and greet on August 7th. That's also on the chat, where you can sign up to come and hear more about the retreat specifically. August 7th, that's a Monday night, and 6 p.m. It's on my website, and I'd love to have a chance to talk to any of you that are interested and want to know more. And then I'm also doing some Grief is a Hero's Journey workshops next month, and August and September. They're day-long workshops. We'll be doing singing, mindfulness, talking more about this hero's journey and how it fits into what you're experiencing on your own grief journey, how it might help you. And those dates are on the website as well as on the chat. They're up there, and the links for you to sign up and register.